Hello everyone, and welcome back to this another video session in IELTS Test Prep series. Today in this video, we are going to discuss how you can prepare for IELTS speaking at home without anybody's assistance. And along with that, I would also like to talk to you about some preconceived notions, some myths which as a candidate you have about IELTS speaking. So without any further ado, let's get started. So as you can see from the slide itself that this session is going to be about the speaking essentials and the aspects, those small, those little details which if not taken care of are definitely going to hurt your scores. And yes, towards the end, I would also like to discuss with you, certain preconceived notions, or I would say that I would want to bust certain myths and the conceptions which not just few but many of the students have in their mind when it comes to the IELTS speaking. All right, so let's get started. You see, when we talk about one of the major or the main essentials of IELTS speaking and what do we exactly need to score good in IELTS speaking, then definitely it is practice and practice. You see, you have to acknowledge the fact that English is our third language. First is definitely the mother tongue, then it is followed by the national language, that is Hindi, and then it comes the English language, right? So you do not have that kind of exposure, right? And you are not exactly speaking much of this language in your day to day life. So it is very important for you to practice. And if you are in a certain field, if you are in a certain profession, and if you think that you know all the nitty gritty of the general IELTS, then definitely you are wrong, I would say, because your business English is entirely different to the general English, the formal English, which actually is the main requirement for IELTS. So the first is topic information. So see, when you are practicing, it is of course very important for you to know what exactly you are practicing. All the components of the IELTS speaking, that's very important for you. And not just the formal structure here, I mean, but with the topic information, I also mean the type of questions which are reported. So you need to understand that IELTS speaking, be it the first part, the cue card, or maybe the third part, is always going to have the questions or the situations which are related to your day to day life. For example, the first part questions talk about your hobby, your best friend, the restaurant you like to go often, or the food you like to eat. So these are the questions which I think or I believe should be very easy for any candidate to answer. Why so? Because as I told you, that these are related to your day to day life. Next, you have to understand that daily 10 minutes is not sufficient. Now, by 10 minutes, I mean the regular practice or the regular speaking sessions which are being conducted at whatever training institute you are enrolled with. See, they are doing their part, your trainers are helping you with the do's and the don'ts, and they are guiding you well. But why I'm telling you that just these 10 minutes are not sufficient is because of the very fact, as I was mentioning in the beginning, that you do not have the exposure. Okay, so these 10 minutes are just about the discussion of the formal structure, okay, the questions which are related to the IELTS speaking in itself. So until and unless you do not practice a bit extra, if you are not dedicating extra 20 minutes out of those 24 hours of your life, you cannot really see a significant improvement or the kind of growth you are looking for when it comes to the language development. Next is learn to speak first. See, this is something I always tell my students. Now, here I would like to cite an example. Have you ever seen a baby who is, just learning to speak? Do you think that the baby just starts, or maybe the toddler just starts with framing the correct sentences? No, at first, the baby just blabbers. Okay, so I'm not telling you to become a baby here. What I exactly mean here is that you have to speak first. And while you are speaking, be it anybody, to your friend, to your trainer, you should not have this thing in your mind that Every time you are speaking, every time you are telling something, it should be 100% correct, because that is definitely not feasible for the initial week or maybe 10 days. So you just have to speak first without any fear of judgment. And self criticism should not really be there. Okay, there are people to judge you, so do not do that for yourself. Next, you will have to start explaining day-to-day situations to yourself. Believe you me, this helps a lot, because as I told you, you have to learn to speak first. Hmm? You have to learn how to formulate or make sentences to a certain length. So for that, you will have to start explaining the day-to-day situations to yourself. For example, if you're standing by the side of some road, how how exactly you can start that situation? You can explain the cars which are moving around. Then you can see certain street vendors who are selling certain item, right? Maybe you are just sitting and relaxing on a couch or maybe a sofa set in your living room, and you can see your mother working in the kitchen, one of your siblings just fidgeting with his or her pencil or maybe pen. So these are the situations. The more you try to put them into the words, the more exposure you're going to get to the language, right? And then definitely not a remarkable, but yes, to a greater level, you will be able to develop a certain fluency in your speaking. Then record yourself. See, recording yourself is very, very integral part of practicing not just the IELTS speaking, but the speaking, of course, in general. Why? See, why why I'm telling you to record yourself, it's because the recording, be it audio recording or maybe the video recording, is definitely going to help you, or maybe it's going to allow you to see how you exactly sound to the other person who's listening to you, right? And it also helps you to assess yourself, and how nervous you look, how nervous you sound, because whenever there is a nervousness, it can be felt through your sound as well, through your voice, because there is certain shakiness involved. So yes, recording yourself is of great help when it comes to the practicing of speaking for IELTS and in general as well. Then mirror speaking. So you see, what I have realized, for all these years training the candidates, and not just myself I'm talking about here, it's about the other trainers as well, that I have seen them telling the student that how important it is to go for the mirror speaking. And I tell you what, the problem is that the student will go back home, practice in front of the mirror for about 1 or maybe 2 days, and then the student just shirks off. The student is not really following this mirror speaking technique religiously. There are certain aspects involved. You have to understand that mirror speaking is not just about standing in front of that mirror, that surface, and then just looking at yourself or maybe looking at your hair or some corner of the room. The basic condition of practicing in front of the mirror is always looking into your own eyes, because the logic here is very simple. Just try it out. Okay, just try it out today when you go back home, or maybe after listening to this video. Just try it for yourself. Stand in front of the mirror and try to speak for about a minute and a half, and then you will realize that you are not exactly able to maintain eye contact with yourself. So the logic is, if you are not able to speak looking at yourself, who's the most familiar face for you, then how are you going to speak in front of somebody who's a complete stranger? Isn't it so? Right? So that's important. That's the basic rule. And this is not just going to be an overnight game. This is not just, you are going to assimilate into your practice within just 1 or 2 days. It is going to take time. You need religious practice of mirror speaking for at least 7 to 10 days. Okay. Next is learn about the switching technique. Okay, so switching technique, I am not sure if you have really checked out our previous video, which is already there with the name How to Tackle IELTS Speaking Cue Card. If you haven't, just check it. First, then only I believe it will make some sense to you what exactly this switching technique is all about. See, when it comes to the IELTS speaking, many students they have this problem with the completion of the cue card, that they are not able to speak for more than a minute and a half. So switching technique is very, very helpful. I'll just brief you about what exactly I mean by this switching technique. So you always have to keep the subject as the central topic, and then you have to revolve a story, and not just one story, but maybe two related to that. Okay, let me just put across a very layman example. For example, I told you to, or maybe I'm asking you to speak about one of your neighbor aunties. Now, you don't really know much about that auntie, but you know very well that how she looks, okay, how often she visits your home, your mom, maybe sometimes, right? So you started talking about that neighbor auntie, and now you have this thing that, okay, I'm running out of ideas, but the other person hasn't stopped me yet. So, what is the best thing to do there? You will keep that subject, that auntie, right in the middle. You will not leave that subject, but then you will start talking about the children of that neighbor auntie, the car, the house, and maybe her husband. Okay, so that's called switching technique. So it becomes really helpful after you have completed a minute and a half of your IELTS speaking cue card, and when you realize that you are running out of the ideas, you don't have much to speak. That's where this technique comes in handy. And last is, you have to expose yourself to an array of language videos. And when I talk about language videos, I do not mean you should start checking out those videos or maybe audios which are related to the general English. You can watch anything. There are so many videos or audios available in the form of entertainment, the podcasts, Amazon, Netflix. So you can switch to any, because what I believe is, when you have the exposure of the language and sometimes the topic which interests you, then you have more chance of absorbing it. For example, if I am trying to learn the language, if I'm trying to get to know more about English, sports is not my interest, but I like to read more about the Bollywood celebrities. So whenever I'll be reading about the Bollywood celebrities, I'll be able to gain more of the words or the range of the words when I'm reading about the topic that interests me. So the same applies with watching or listening to the videos and the audios as well. All right. So this was all about the practice and the certain modes, certain measures which you can take in order to improve your IELTS speaking by yourself or maybe at home without somebody's assistance. All right. Okay. Now, I would want to discuss with you the skills which are required for IELTS speaking here. So when we talk about the skills, by that we mean the rubrics which the examiners are actually looking for in your IELTS speaking, because it's not just about the vocabulary, it's not just about the pronunciation. So it's fluency and coherence. Then we have the lexical resource. Next is grammatical range and accuracy. And last is the pronunciation. I know it's not really in the order, it's not exactly in the order, but these are exactly the rubrics, the skills which are required for you people to follow, to have assimilated or incorporated in your training, right? Okay, so fluency and coherence. Do I really have to explain what exactly fluency and coherence is? Okay, I'll just brief you. So, fluency means if you are able to speak on any topic or any question asked at a certain length, right? And coherence, of course, how well your ideas are linked to each other. Hmm? If you are answering the question in the word form or the phrasal form. Then we have the lexical resource with us. Now, lexical resource is vocabulary, the usage of maybe the collocations, the certain idiomatic expressions which are very helpful in expressing your opinion, your feelings. And yes, if somebody tells you that you cannot use idiomatic expressions, then I don't think you should really be, following that or maybe falling for that, because idiomatic expressions, the collocations are equally welcomed as the typical rich words which you try to make use of. Then grammatical range and accuracy, definitely it is all about the type of tenses you are using and the sentences you are making. So I will not exactly go into the types of sentences which you should be making. I'll rather tell you here how exactly the grammatical range and accuracy is assessed. So answer has to be in the sentence form, not just one or two words. If I'm asking you which room is your favorite in your house, and if you tell me that my room is my favorite, do you think it is going to be sufficient? No. You will have to tell the examiner, to the listener, that this particular room is your favorite with one or two characteristics added to it. So it is in a full-fledged sentence form. And last we have is the pronunciation. Okay, so see, when we talk about the pronunciation, this I would want to talk about, I would like to explain it a bit more. See, pronunciation is not just about not having the mother tongue effect. It is also about the type of accent you use, right? If accent can hurt your scores, it definitely can hurt your scores if that accent is not allowing the clarity in the words you are speaking. I'll give an example here. How exactly you pronounce, how exactly you stress on a certain word makes a whole lot difference in how you have pronounced a noun and how you have pronounced a verb. Now, take for example the word record. Now, record is a noun and it can be used as a verb as well. So, if you are pronouncing the record as record, it's a verb here. But if I needed a noun in a sentence, I had to pronounce it as record. It's not record, it's record. Now, record is a noun and record is a verb. So I think this example should be, sufficient enough for you people to realize that why pronunciation is important and why stressing while you speak on certain words is important as well. So these are the skills required. And yes, if you think that you need certain help with understanding more about it, then you are free to reach us any given time, because the numbers and the medium or the channels to reach us will be displayed towards the end of the video. I hope you remember at the beginning of the session I told you that there are some common myths, or I would say the perceptions, that I really need to bust, that I really need to talk to you about. See, it is often told that hand gestures while making communication are not welcomed. See, what I believe is you are getting judged on the basis of how you're presenting the answer to the question. So if you have actually started making the hand gestures, it should not really be flying over all, the examiner's face like this. It shouldn't be like that. You can make use of the hand gestures, because gestures allow you with more, capability, I would say, or it's basically a skill to express yourself more freely. Hmm? So you can make use of hand gestures, and I do not see any problem with using them, because they are not going to hurt or harm your scores in any manner. Second, there is always this stress given on you should always be dressing formally. So many times the students, they ask, okay, so if the dresses are actually a parameter of getting a good scores? No. See, you are dressing for yourself. Of course, who doesn't want to look good? Who doesn't want to look presentable, right? So dressing is for you. Dressing is not going to guarantee you the scores. But yes, make sure that you are dressed fine. Your color of the dress, or the type of the dress you are wearing is not out of place. Okay, so dressing formally is not the guarantee for the good scores. Next, using a certain accent guarantees scores. So there are many students who actually try to copy American accent or the British accent and sometimes Australian accent, but no, any certain accent is not the guarantee, okay, for the good scores. You can use the neutral accent. Neutral accent I believe the accent which I'm using is a neutral accent because I'm not trying to copy any or imitate any, foreign accent here. Next, only vocab can help. No, you have to tell me here that if you are framing a sentence which is grammatically incorrect, which is for 5.5 only, that is your grammatical range and accuracy is for 5.5 only, do you think just adding the lexical resource, just adding an 8 band level rich word to it will help you? And how exactly are you sure that the vocabulary, the word which you are going to make use of, is in accordance to the sentence or to the context of the sentence? Next, we cannot lie in our speaking or give made up answers. You can. It's not, fixated that you cannot give made up answers. For example, if the question is, talk about blue as your favorite color. I cannot negate, I can't say that, okay, blue isn't my favorite color, because then you are just putting an end to the possibility of the examiner getting into the further discussion with you. Hmm? So if you are telling, though blue is not your favorite color, blue is not my favorite color, I can simply say that, okay, blue is definitely one of my favorite colors because it really gives this soothing effect to my eyes. And if I have to tell you, then there are 4 to 5 dresses which I have which are in blue color. So you see, you just have to give a made up answer. You do not really have to be honest all the time. Next is content matters in our speaking. It is basically related to the first, this point which I just mentioned to you. Content, the idea, there is no any list of the ideas, okay, in accordance to which your answer should be. It's not like that. For example, if I'm asking you the question here that cars should be banned, I personally believe that cars should be banned, but you as a candidate answered that no, cars should not be banned. So does that mean that I'm going to deduct your scores? No, definitely not. Okay. So the scoring is not on the basis of what you think about a certain question. The scoring is on the basis of these skills which I mentioned in this previous slide. Next, being good at only one part can help. Okay, so this is also one of the issues which I would want to address. See, there are 3 parts: first part, second, and then the third part. So students often have this confusion that, okay, if we prepare first part and the third part well enough, then even if we don't speak about, for the cue card, we can still manage good scores. But that is not how it is. Okay, you have to prepare all the 3 parts equally, and then only you can guarantee yourself a manageable or maybe a good score. Next we have, if examiner is friendly, that means I'm going to score good. Okay, so I know I shouldn't really be having a laugh at this, but you see, I have had lot many students who have, after coming out of their examination center, who came straight back to me and then they told me, okay, ma'am, the examiner was very friendly. He or she was continuously looking at me and then having this huge smile. And eventually, the students happened to score only 6 and 6.5. That was the max score. Why so? Because you took that smiling face of the examiner for guarantee, hmm, for granted. So do not fall for that. You might come across an examiner who's just, laid back with closed eyes, not even responding to your questions. What's he going to do? Are you going to get distracted? No, that's not going to help. So if examiner is having this resting or a rigid face, or examiner is having a smiling face, that is not again going to guarantee you the good scores. The scores are completely dependent on what you are saying and how you are saying, or how you are telling it, or how you are answering the question. Speaking fast will hide my mistakes. No, it's actually opposite to it. If you're speaking really fast, now the person sitting in front of you can still figure out, can still make out what exactly you're trying to tell. But then you should know that there is a recording going on. And if you're in the process of speaking really fast and your recording is not getting, you know, your answers are not getting recorded properly, then the second examiner who's going to listen, who's going to score you just on the basis of your recording, might not be able to understand certain words which you just told or which you spoke, right? So speaking fast, again, should be out of the list. And last is, this again is very important. Students sometimes they happen to just alter the exam format. I don't know why they do that. See, whenever a student is walking out of the the examination center, the student they happen to make lot many different statements. For example, many students they come out and then they go like, okay, so examiner took my speaking for about 30 minutes. Okay, so examiner actually asked me only the first part and the third part questions, but examiner didn't ask me the cue card. No, that is not so. Examiners are not giving you any preferential treatment because they do not know you, right? So they are not going to make any favor for you by skipping on one part and then asking you the other part which you might be comfortable with. So any student who is coming out of the test center and telling you such feedbacks about the exam, don't fall for that, because examiners will have to follow the format, and that is no any part will be skipped at all. It will be the first part, cue card, and then the third part. And about the timings, speaking cannot be for half an hour or maybe for 40 minutes. Speaking max can be for 15 to 20 minutes. That's about it. All right. So these were the common perceptions. If taken care of, I believe again will really help you a lot with the practice.